Look, it's all zeros. 0% financing, 0% down, 0% repairs and labor costs for 10 years. Experience the premier difference today. Financing is available with approved credit. Offer expires 9/30/2024. Premier Heating and Air is offering system checkups. Heat or AC, your choice, $49. Free estimate restrictions may apply, and this offer can't be combined with other offers. Experience the premier difference today. Log on to dublin.premierishere.com. Premier Heating and Air, a locally owned and operated company.
Thank you, Spence. I really appreciate that. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is a community coming together to learn something to protect each other. And we've seen unprecedented fraud in the last few years, especially since COVID. And we'll get and talk about that. But I want to thank everybody for being here. Matthew with the City of Dublin, with all the IT work we've done to make this happen. I couldn't done this without him. And Whitney, thank you, Whitney, for putting this all together. So with that, I'm going to get into a few things. I know we're pushed for time. I'm going to go pretty quick just to show you the magnitude of what's going on in the fraud arena. And I'll get into the phishing, smishing, bishing, all that in a minute, just where you'll have an understanding of what those terminologies are. But we got personal data breaches, one of the biggest things affecting not only you, your bank accounts, and the banks. And that's where we're giving out our online credentials. People's been able to remote get into your account and actually steal those funds. Non-payment, you've seen those where you've had Amazon, eBay, different ones where you didn't get a payment, those type scams. Extortion, sextortion, investment, tech support. And one of the big ones, and we're going to spend a little bit of time with that, and get my readers here, getting at that age. But business email compromises. Has anybody here heard of a business email compromise? It's just huge. Right now we're at about $4 billion in losses for 24 in business email. And that's what that era there. We've certainly seen an increase there. Identity theft. And we'll show you another little turn on that, probably something you don't realize as far as identity theft. Confidence romance scams. That's one of the hardest things I have to deal with. And we deal with it on a routine basis where we have somebody that thinks they're in love with the most wonderful person they've ever seen that they've never met. They call them their fiance. They spend a lot of time grooming these individuals. And then in the end, they wind up taking them for everything they got. And we'll show you some examples of that. Employment scams, and that's just our money mules. That's how our fraudsters are actually getting money from the banking institutions to the other countries where these funds are going to. These are just some honorable mentions. Government impersonation, jury duty warrants. If you ever get a text or a call from anybody on the law enforcement sector that says you didn't show up to grand jury and instructing you to go get a gift card and give them the code to that gift card or else you're going to be arrested, I assure you law enforcement will never work that. They're never going to ask you that. They're never going to use that fear to try to solicit you into sending fraudulent money or even Bitcoin or virtual currency. Credit card fraud, even though it's going down, a lot of that is because of the measures we have in place, and I commend technology in the banking sector with that. SafeLock, if you're banking at a bank, look to see what they have where you see real-time usage of that card. If somebody uses that debit card, you're actually getting real-time information that card's just been scanned. That way, you can go in the system on the app. If you download that app, if you see any fraudulent activity, you can immediately shut that card down. That is really saving us as far as the debit card fraud. And that's just you taking control of that card. That's huge for us. Because there's just too many skimming devices out there. You've all heard about it. Majority of them are on your gas pumps, but you can also have on your retail merchant scanners. So that's how they're stealing that card information. Debt collection, car warranties going down. Most people understand how that works. Secret shoppers. Overpayment scams, that's where somebody has actually sent you a check. We recently had a client call in to the Gray Branch that knew who I was. And said, Pete, we just put a car, and this is for a charity organization. We just put one of our vans out there for sale. I've got somebody that says they want it, and we just received a cashier's check. The problem is we're selling the van for $7,000, cashier's checks for what? $10,000, right? So they're asking them to deposit the check. We've made a mistake. We're sorry, but it's a cashier's check. That's guaranteed funds. Just cash the check and just refund us the difference. Well, 7-10 days later, that check's returned, and they're out that difference, $3,000. That's how that works. So we were able to stop that. Military public safety support, and I'm telling you right now, and we'll get into this in just a minute, what's going on with us right now with the hurricanes? You're going to start seeing a lot of fraud, a lot of FEMA. You're going to see some price gouging. So just be aware of that, especially if you have any storm damage or you have loved ones with storm damage. Kind of have some oversight over that because it's coming. So I do a lot of training. I do a lot of security training. I do a lot of training on bank robbery. All right? Even though those trends have been going down, it's risk versus reward. It's very risky to rob a bank. Much easier to commit fraud. You're not looking at near the prison sentence time. But the whole time I've been doing this, Willie Sutton was a famous bank robber. Willie Sutton robbed over 100 banks in the 1940s. He was finally apprehended by the FBI after over 100 bank robberies. And when the FBI interviewed Willie, what did he say? They asked him, why are you robbing all these banks? It's because that's where the money is. Well, there's no difference right now. Look what we just got through with the pandemic. Look what we just got through with our payroll loans, our PPP loans. I mean, over $700 billion loaned out in government funds. I think we've got about $4 billion of that went overseas that probably will never be recovered. Same thing at the same time, we were seeing all the unemployment fraud. We started seeing states like Rhode Island, 20% of all claims, unemployment claims, were fraudulent, and they were using bank money mules. We actually had probably 7 at Morris Bank that we caught and was able to shut those accounts down and turn them over to the Secret Service as money mule accounts. And that's all they're trying to do is funnel those funds to another country. Complaints and losses. I just want you to take a quick look at this. I mean, if that doesn't have a statement, we started the pandemic in 2020. If you look at that, almost 800,000 complaints at $4.2 billion in 2020. Look where we're at in 2023. All right, not that many more complaints, 880, but look at the total loss. And this is all from scams and fraud. All right, that's huge. They're talking about 2024 is going to be a 30% increase over that, and those numbers. So that's pretty eye-opening. To know that that's where we're at as far as the fraud arena with bad actors.
You ready to meet the latest addition to the family? The money you saved us with auto owners helped make it all possible. It really is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Excuse me?
Third best thing. Third best thing.
Auto Owners offers discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance because they think the more you protect, the more you should save. That's simple human sense.
Ask Curry Maffett Insurance in Dublin and Augusta if auto owners make sense for you.
Well, it's finally my time of year again. It's hunting season at Roach Farm and Garden. Don't let your deer go hungry. Roach Farm and Garden has your plot covered. We got oats, buck forage, soybeans only $20 a bag, wildlife blends, 3-way, 5-way, 6-way, and 7-way, Australian winter peas, wheat, and all the clovers, crimson, Uchi, and Landino, radishes, and more. Need something to spread seed or fertilizer? Roach Farm and Garden just got a new shipment of 3-point spreaders. Need a place to sit? Roach Farm and Garden has Millennium stands and chairs, plus blinds, and the best tower stands available. Don't run out of feed. Roach Farm and Garden carries feed for just about everything and a full line of pet and livestock supplies. Trophy rocks, salt blocks, attractants, Antler Extreme, Godfrey FRM deer feed. We even got the feeders to put it in, Moultrie and Boss Buck. Need a go hunting pass? Roach Farm and Garden can get you permission. We have plants, trees, shrubs, hanging baskets, and a big shipment of mums, plus a showroom full of goodies. Don't let your feet get wet and cold. Pick up a new pair of boots at Roach Farm and Garden. We carry Rocky, Georgia, and Ariat, plus a full line of Carhartt clothes. Want to change your luck and put a buck in your truck? Voodoo is at the register. Pick you up a bottle. It just makes sense. So get on in here and let Roach Farm and Garden help you with your hunting season. 2 locations, Dublin and Wrightsville.
This is how they're getting the information from us. We're our worst enemy. All these devices that we have now, our cell phones, everything that we put out there on social media, it's making it very easy for our fraudsters to be able to profile us, to get that information they need. So you got phishing. Anybody know what phishing is? That's just using email to try to blunt force out there, sending it out to a bunch of people to see who will click on it. We got vishing, smishing, hijacked email, social media, sweetheart scams, and online job scams. That's all some of the frauds that we're dealing with. So phishing, and that's just using electronic communications to manage someone to giving private information. That's private information. Like I said, we're making it easy for them because we're putting a lot of that information out there on social media sites. Vishing. Vishing is using voice over IP or traditional telephone lines to trick somebody into giving confidential information. Who still has a landline at their house? Spence, you have one? So a lot of our elderly clients still have a landline. Not calling you elderly, I'd say clients. But we still have a lot of elderly clients that have a landline in their home. All right. And what is my grandparents, what do they do when that phone rings? They're going to answer it. They're very trustworthy. They're not going to be like on a cell phone like we. If I don't recognize the number, it's going straight to voicemail. I'm not going to answer it. But they pick up that phone, and the fraudsters know that. Recently was involved in a case, it was back quite a few years ago, where we had somebody in DeKalb County that was looking in the phone book and was looking for just guessing what would be elderly names in the phone book in DeKalb County and reaching out and calling these numbers. And when she had somebody answer and she could tell that they were elderly, she would tell them that their power system be cut off and instructing them to go get gift cards. She had over 860 victims up in there in DeKalb County. And it was interesting what she did. She actually went out there with a fraudulent driver's license. She had a fraudulent driver's license made out in the name of Georgia Power. And then she went to the telephone company and actually got a service in the name of what? Georgia Power. So if anybody had call waiting, call ID, caller ID, and they would see that number pop up, it's showing Georgia Power, which helped her commit all this fraud. Smishing, that's using text messages. Probably one of the worst things we can do if you've seen that, especially coming from a bank. We're going to get into that a little bit more. No bank is ever going to send you a text message with a link attached to it for you to click on. All right, and we'll show you some examples of that. But that's using text message to obtain that data to trick you. Hijacked email, taking over a personal email and masquerading as a customer. Social media, using that as a resource to obtain your identity or commit fraud against you. I don't know how many people here with Facebook accounts have been hacked. I mean, every time I turn around, I'm seeing somebody that I'm familiar with saying, don't answer that, don't answer a friend request because I've been hacked. Sweetheart scams. That's just trollers. They're putting it out there on legitimate dating websites. And once they make that connection, they actually have them communicate through another means, usually through another app, all right? And they build that trust and will actually clean them out. So we'll talk more of that in a minute. So social engineering, they use that tactic of being an authority figure, the IRS, law enforcement, because you didn't show up to grand jury, so they're going to show you that authority figure. Also, they'll work and build a profile. If somebody's trying to get information from you or they're trying to get into a bank, they can actually say, hey, Pete, I saw you at the Morris Bank Christmas party. It was good to see Karen there with you. And where are they getting all that information? They're getting it from social media. They're getting it from a Facebook account. I don't have a Facebook account. My wife does, but I don't. We love keeping up with our grandchildren. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to be very careful what you're putting out there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people that I know, even from the law enforcement circle, asking just a random person putting out there, what was your first car? Or what was your first car in high school? All right, what's your favorite color? Well, if you think back on it, these are security questions that banks are asking to protect your account. So just be careful with that. Urgency, speed, it's always going to be, if it doesn't happen right now, you're going to suffer the consequences. Huge red flag. Just slow it down, think about it. Does this make sense? Hopefully reach out to somebody that you can talk to that's more familiar with it if you're not. But urgency, speed should be immediately time to just shut it down. Let's think about this. Let's stop before we click on anything. Online job applications. Those are just phony job postings. We see this all the time. They put them on legitimate websites, but all they're asking is somebody trying to provide them all their banking information to use them as a money mule. Money mule is just that person using their accounts that are already set up to forward it probably to 2 or 3 money mules before it actually leaves the country, before it actually gets into the fraudster's hands. It makes it much more difficult for law enforcement to track. It is illegal. If they know and you can prove what they're doing, they can be prosecuted. If they're truly a victim and they think they're doing some kind of work for what funds they're being collected, usually the Secret Service is going to serve you with a money mule letter, and it's basically putting you on notice that this is illegal activity, and if we catch you doing it again, we're going to prosecute you.
Since 1916, Gravely has been designed, engineered, and made right here in the USA. Whether you prefer gas or electric, every Gravely has been forged with the commercial landscaper in mind. So they're not only built to last, but to also keep you riding comfortably from dawn to dusk. So ask yourself, are you ready to graduate to a Gravely? Visit your local Gravely dealer today.
Hey, I'm TJ with Dublin Outdoors and Power Sports, formerly known as Myers Equipment Supply. We're your full-line dealer for Gravely lawnmower sales and service.
Well, trucking is a 7 days a week, 24 hours a day operation. So there's a tremendous need for the logistics field, for drivers and mechanics to work on. Fred had a desire to be a mechanic. We encouraged him to seek some additional training that offered through OFTC, which he did. What he learned at OFTC has just taken his job and his performance to another level.
All right, most misused Social Security of all time. This is Hilda Witcher. Social Security number used 5,755 times fraudulently in 1943 and over 40,000 times since then. This is going back to 1940s, guys. There wasn't any cell phones. All right. Anybody have a clue of how this happened? This Hilda worked for a wallet company in the 1940s building leather wallets. They were the first wallet company to actually put the clear slot in there for an ID. Hilda worked for that company, and as they sold those wallets to demonstrate what that clear slot was for, what did they use? Her Social Security ID. All right. So probably one of the most used Social Security numbers out there since the 1940s. So like I said, fraudsters are out there. They were there then. They just look for an easy opportunity. So synthetic identity. Has anybody heard of synthetic identity? About 80% of our identity thefts that we're dealing with as a community, as a bank, as a credit card company, opening bank accounts are called a synthetic identity. All right. Synthetic identity is fabricated. Part of it's real, part of it is not going to be associated with the person applying for that identity. It is fabricated. This is more than 16 million ID. About 85% of your identity thefts are synthetic ID now. So this is how this happens. So we get a fabricated identity, use a combination of real and fabricated information. They use their real name, but they have a credit problem, terrible credit history. And what they do is they go out there to these fraudulent sites. They're open fraudulently. And they want to create a new identity by applying for a credit privacy number, a CPN. You go out there and look at some of these, you'll see websites out there advertising a CPN. And they're basically saying that we can set you up a new credit profile using a CPN and not your Social Security number. All right? This right here is CPN numbers. These are just some of the CPN advertisements that are out there. If you look down here at the bottom right here, this is always right here. CPN numbers, FBI approved. All right? They're not FBI approved, I assure you. You contact the FBI, they're going to tell you it doesn't exist. You can't get around. Now, there's been some things with the Secret Service that through presidents and somebody maybe in a dignitary, some type of dignitary protection, they can give them a different number. They won't even admit to that. But you cannot replace a Social Security number with a CPN number. All right? But you got companies out there that are doing that. They're being advertised on these credit repair sites, credit privacy number, credit C profile number. It's a 9-digit identification number, identical to a Social Security number. That's a site right there that's advertising it. Full service, talking about what? 3 days, 2 to 3 delivery service. This is how this works. You pay them the money. They actually go out there on a trade line, and they're going to put you on somebody else's credit card. Probably, my belief is some of the people that have had access to some of the credit card information are behind a lot of this. Now, there are some people that will agree and probably get paid to do that, but I would bet you that a lot of these people that have good credit profiles with the credit bureaus, they never know anybody was even added to the card. Because all it takes is 30 days, 90 days if they have time, and they add them to that Bank of America, Citibank, and after 30 days, they start assuming that credit rating based on that profile. These are some dual combos right here that are priced out. You can see that, retail pricing, a combo. It shows you the limits, $14,000, Bank of America $5,000, and it tells you what that's going to cost you. All right. They don't have access to the card. They're just on the card as an authorized user, but they don't have the card. All right. So all they're doing is building that credit profile with your credit bureaus. Once they build that profile, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go out there and apply for numerous credit cards with banks, different credit card companies. They're going to take cash advances on all of those cards, cash them out, and not a dime of it will ever be paid back because it's all synthetic, it's all fraud. All right. So what's being sold as a CPN in many cases is actually a valid Social Security number. It could come from elderly, homeless, it can come from somebody in jail that's not using that number. But majority of the time, and this is what I've seen, this is where your Social Security number is coming from. All right. This is a small child that has a Social Security number. They would never know that that Social Security number has been used fraudulently until what? They're 18 years old. So when they turn 18, they try to go out and apply for a credit card or a bank account. All of a sudden, they see all these debt that's associated with that Social Security number. Right. So anybody here have grandchildren that are small? I do. Anybody have children? One of the biggest things you can do, and I'm telling you right now, is reach out to one of your credit bureaus and go ahead and put a credit freeze on that minor's account. It costs you $3 to do that in the state of Georgia. It's a process. You can't just do it online. They have to verify who you are and the child. But you can put a credit freeze on that child, and that freeze stays on them till they're 18 years old. It doesn't come off until they're 18 years old. And that will prevent anybody from using that Social Security number. Because the majority of the time, these Social Security numbers are coming from medical breaches. All right. Hospital, doctors, medical breaches. And they're getting all the childs, they're getting the infant's name, they're getting the Social Security number, and they're selling all this information on the dark web for these people to use.
This month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and once again, Dublin Chevy GMC is joining the fight against this terrible disease. Hi, I'm Don Carswell, and our team here at Dublin Chevy GMC is asking you to join the fight with us. For every car sold or serviced this month at Dublin Chevy GMC, we will make a donation to our local agency partners. So come on by and pick out a new Chevy or GMC like the Sierra or Silverado or the all-new 25 Equinox. Then our team will make you a no-hassle deal and we can continue the fight against breast cancer.
When someone says the word bank, what comes to mind? For most folks, it's probably money or loans. Maybe it's vaults. The problem is, these are all just things. And a bank is not a collection of things. A bank is a collection of stories. If you've been around long enough, you've heard one of us say, "It pays to bank blue." The hero of our story is you. Every home bought, every business opened, every dream secured has been your story. We've just had a front row seat, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Sources of information, data breaches. We was talking about how huge that's been. All right. So business email compromise. What is a business email compromise? It's actually where somebody, or fraudsters, or bad actors, they target a business or a commercial client, and they try to initiate a large funds transfer. They're trying to get it all at one time. Who is usually could be a victim? It's individuals within a business, but what we see, it's usually CEO, could be a CFO, some big wheel in the business. Email's been hacked, and actually send that email through to the company, whoever's paying vendors or bills. They create a fraudulent payment, a wire payment for services, and they'll even spoof an email coming from the CFO saying this needs to be paid ASAP. And they usually have a very time-sensitive time on that to get that done. And these companies fall for it. And they pick their time to do this. So business email compromise is usually an unusual request. Is it coming from somebody? Does a CFO usually send you an email saying, listen, I'm out, or I'm at a funeral, or I'm on aircraft, but this has to be done today? Is that normal? Signs of urgency and secrecy should be a huge red flag. Request or demand to bypass normal controls. Unusual statements. Large wire funds transfer to new recipients. We haven't sent a wire to this person before. Why did it change? All right. Transfers initiated near the end of the day, and this is what we deal with all the time. They're going to hit you on a Friday, or they're going to hit you on a holiday weekend. That's just going to give that time more for that money to go into a Money Mules account and for them to funnel those funds out. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of these companies. Somebody recently fixing to buy a house, or you got a closing attorney. I had one couple that had one from their closing attorney. They sent $200,000 on a Friday. Come to find out, it did not come from the attorney. Somebody was in the email system, and they were just, I dealt with them for a week trying to get a recall, getting law enforcement, trying to look at seizing those funds, getting them back. And one of the larger banks wouldn't give us any information. They wouldn't tell us that they still had the funds, but they did ask for a hold harmless agreement from the bank, which was a very positive sign. In the end, it was because they were calling me every day, just tears, crying. This was their life savings, their dream home. And in the end, we were able to get all those funds back, except for a $20 wire transfer fee coming back from the bank. So that was one of the best calls I've made, and that made me feel really good that we're able to get that back. Email domain is usually very similar, but they may just change one little thing, so you have to really look at it. Something from a lowercase to a capital, or a period in it. So you really have to look at those very closely. Emails are monitored by hackers. Sometimes they block it, so your victim is not going to be able to see it. Hackers open business accounts with other financial institutions, and it's usually through Money Mules also. That's how they're going to funnel the money out. Email is intercepted and changed to reflect a new beneficiary account. That's what we're saying, account that we've never wired to before. They're moved as soon as they're received, and the beneficiary inquires where the funds are. They're usually hidden inside folders with that. So what can we do? We certainly talk to our customers. We walk them through the steps for due diligence. We provide them with a list of things to do when we have this. We go ahead and close that account, open new accounts because our fraudsters have that account. We ask that they have those computers scrubbed by a professional, somebody that is trustworthy, that can go in to make sure malware is not on that PC. Provide educational literature. We review the wire documents, a wire checklist, and we report that BAC as soon as possible. And as soon as it happens, get your local law enforcement involved, and if it meets a threshold, we're going to get the FBI involved. I can't tell you how many wires we've been able to recover, and that's simply by reaching out to our law enforcement partners, not just our local agencies, but our federal agencies. Now, when you talk to the FBI, they're going to tell you there's a threshold, but they do have what we call a kill chain that they can activate. And that kill chain has to be done within 72 hours of the wire initiation. And the threshold will vary. In Atlanta, they may tell you it's 50,000. I know in Macon, I've had as little as 25,000, and I've had the FBI involved and been very successful in recovering those wires, just simply because they have agents on the ground where the funds went into a bank. So they're there almost real time, checking all those funds as soon as they're notified. Just like any computer crime, if you're a victim, please go out there and do an ic3.gov complaint. That is a victim complaint. It's out there for anybody to fill out. It goes immediately to the FBI. And one of the good things, even if it's an attempt or you didn't take a large loss, those numbers still add up. So if the FBI is actually working these gangs and working groups that have committed all this fraud, they're looking at every one of those IC3 complaints that's going through and tallying them up, which makes a huge difference in that investigation, especially if they're needing thresholds to meet certain sentence guidelines through U.S. Attorney's Office. So make sure you're reporting to ic3.gov. It's just simply ic3.gov on your computer. And certainly, and one of the things we've been very successful with, not only do we have the local and federal resources, but our bank is going to immediately do a wire recall. Is Kim Walker here? And she knows. I mean, that's immediately, and many times, just because of that banking relationship, especially if it's a smaller bank, we're successful in getting that recall before law enforcement even sees the funds. So doesn't matter to me as long as I get them back, right? That's what we're trying to do. So we're certainly going to do that recall. Banks in China, Hong Kong remain the primary destination. Fraudulent funds. However, the FBI has seen an increase. They've been seeing an increase transfers to the United Kingdom, Mexico, and Turkey. Just makes it much more, when we have an international wire, much more difficult to recover those funds. Time-wise, it helps us a little bit, but once it reaches that destination country, say Jamaica, and a lot of these governments, Mexico, a lot of the governments, even if they step in, they will actually seize those funds, and it makes it very difficult to get them back. Fraudster may not get them, but the government there will seize them, and will actually not get them back. So email mitigation. If you see one of these social engineers, email, review the grammar, contact of the email, context of it. Does it sound like the customer would speak? I had one email where the CEO was Charlie, but he always went by Charles, you know. And when he sent the email for the wire, he put Charlie on it. So review the time of the email. Is it in the same time zone? I mean, look at the email when you got it. If it's coming from another country and they've spoofed an email or gotten into an email, it's probably going to have a whole other time stamp on it. And at the same time, call customer in the bank. Anything over email. Call the customer, confirm all requests for account information, funds transfer, received by email, especially if you see some discrepancies in there where they've changed the destination of a wire that you normally would send for a customer. Certainly reach out and try to make sure that that's correct. Fraudsters will state unavailable due to funeral, important meeting, or conference. We've seen that. Fraudsters have access to victim's email. They'll wait till the victim is traveling, conduct the fraud. They'll try to make it much more difficult for you to actually reach out to the customer.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Quality products and installation since 1985. That's 4 Seasons.
I believe it was a divine calling. So ever since I was a little girl, I think it was in me to have the compassion and the heart for it.
For me, it's an opportunity to express love and care for someone, and that is returned in multitudes. I just think it's the best job in the whole world.
Whenever you're going home, you feel like you help someone throughout the day. You really do mean something to your clients.
You get to go in and give them the best version of yourself, you know, the love and the joy that you have, the passion in your heart, and share that with them every day. It's probably the most rewarding career there is.
Overpayment, we already went into this. It's just simply buyer of a new employee accidentally sends the victim funds more than owed. Usually the checks, they're saying are counterfeit, they're cashier's check. They're asking you to deposit those checks and then send the money back to them. By the time you do that, 8, 9, 10 days, that check doesn't clear, then you're out the funds. Employment scams, we see these all the time out there. Victims accepts a job. They provide bank account information, online banking. They have fraudster deposits. They check via mobile banking. And a lot of this is going to just 2P2 payments. But much easier for them to do that. And cryptocurrency. I don't know if you've seen this, but if you go out through the FDIC, they're already warning everybody about all of the cryptocurrency Bitcoin scams. Most of it's coming out of China. They call it pig butchering. Has anybody heard of pig butchering? All right. So pig butchering is basically they've talked you into investing in virtual currency. And you start initially on a small scale, but they start forwarding you fraudulent documents to show how much money you're making and how much that Bitcoin is worth. And they actually groom you over a period of time to make additional purchases, till they pretty much got you everything they can get out of you. And then once they get out of you, they actually call you, they slaughter you. They actually pull those funds and steal every bit of it from you because it was never in your name to start with, never was invested for you to start with. So be real careful with that. Grandparent scam. This is something that we deal with, I would say, pretty routinely because it's successful. And I was recently in a branch. Spence knows about this. And I just happened to hear a gentleman that was in his late 80s. And he was taking about $10,000 cash out. And he was turning around to walk out. One of the tellers said, "I hope your grandson's okay." And that was just a huge red flag for everybody. The CSR that heard it, I just happened to be there to look at an ATM. I heard it, and I was like, "Oh, time out, time out." So I explained to him who I was, and he basically said that he had gotten a call from his grandson, who lived in actually Perry, which isn't too far from the Warner Robins area. And the grandson said that he had been traveling in Atlanta, had a car wreck, and actually hit a woman that was pregnant. And then they put another person on the phone. It was an attorney. And that attorney talked him into going into the bank to get $10,000 to represent the grandson. None of that sounded right to me. I'd already heard about it once. Usually once they get to $10,000, they're going to tell you that the baby died as a result of the accident. They're going to come back after you for more. But the scary part of this is they were actually sending an Uber courier to his house to pick the funds up. So we were able to go to the house, notified law enforcement. We were able to get his cell phone, which he didn't have at the time. We were able to make contact with the grandson. Grandson said, "No, I'm perfectly okay. That was just a total scam." But that's pretty much how that works. And what's scary right now is, if you haven't seen this, has anybody heard of artificial intelligence, AI? There's just so many good things AI can do, But what is really scary is if they actually talk to a grandson through a social media post anyway and actually can get about 3 seconds of that voice, they can duplicate that voice of a grandchild that's calling a grandparent to tell them that they're in dire need or desperately in trouble. We're going to see a lot more of that. There's no doubt in my mind. They're trying to put controls on all of this, but that's where it comes to educate. If you've got grandparents out there, please educate them. Tell them if you ever get a call from somebody that you think is my child or your grandson, granddaughter, immediately notify us. All right. And immediately let's notify our grandchild to verify that information before you fall victim to this scam. Romance scams. I don't know where to start with this. It's probably one of the hardest things I've had to deal with. We deal with it on a routine basis. It's one of the most upcoming scams that we've seen, and it actually will deplete people's accounts. They've met somebody online. That's usually on one of your dating sites. Could be Christian Mingles. It could be a number of them on here, Farmers Only. There's a number of different sites on there. But if you've ever sat across from somebody that spent a year, 8 months, thinking that they've met the person of their life, that's their soulmate, and that they are engaged, and this person is coming to marry them, but just not because they're deployed overseas or they're working on an oil rig, and then you try to explain that to them and tell them the red flags, it's probably one of the hardest things that I've had to do. Very difficult to do. And that's exactly what happens. This is one that I just had recently. Let's see. Next slide. But if you do see romance scams, you're going to see a request, talk on chat or email or messaging service outside that dating site that will claim that your introduction was destiny or fate, like we said. Claims to be from the U.S. but is currently living, working, traveling abroad. Ask for money, goods, or similar type of financial assistance. Ask for assistance with personal transactions. They may ask to use your account as a money mule account. Gives vague answers. It goes on and on. This is one that I had just recently. This has probably been in the last month, 30 days. Scammers actually got this person who is a true military soldier in U.S. military. They were using his picture. And this particular lady sent $120,000 to the fraudsters. This is her fiance. She's 90 years old. This is her fiance that she's been talking to. He even went as far as taking pictures of her and him, putting them side by side separately on a couch to send pictures to her, to get her to send additional funds. And this is supposed to be like a lieutenant colonel in the military. Do you think he's going to need those funds? Right. This is another one right here. This is from an 83-year-old gentleman that we were working with. He's 83. This is the person that he met online through some kind of gaming site. And he was adamant that she was in the U.S. military. She was deployed overseas. So if you ever see this, and somebody will share that picture with you on their cell phone, you can go to Google, reverse image search. And this has really worked well for me to try to convince somebody they're not talking to who they think they are. You're talking to foreign actors in Guam, okay, is who you're dealing with. But did a Google reverse search. It's the same exact picture on a LinkedIn profile as the one that she sent him. All right. And even explaining that this is who this person really is, from Texas, that owns a beauty supply company, he still wanted us to go see if we could find out through the military if they were still in the service. So it's just very difficult, especially when they devoted that amount of time and they're just convinced that this is the love of their life. So they just simply went out there, stole this LinkedIn profile, been using it out there on dating sites, just hoping somebody's going to click on it. This is one when I was with State Bank, really made an impression on me. This was an elderly client that we had. always came into the branch. And that's the best thing about banks and a community bank. We know our customer. We know our customer base. You know, we know what kind of activity they do as far as their banking activity. It really gives us an advantage when we see somebody being taken advantage of. This gentleman always came in the branch. He always spoke with our teller staff. All of a sudden he shows up through the drive-thru. He's, I think, 88 or 89 years old. And he has this younger lady coming through the drive-thru window. He's cashing a check for $1,000, and what do you see her doing? She's climbing over into his lap to the vacuum tube to get those funds out. One of our tellers saw that and said, this is a red flag, and immediately contacted me. Not only would they go through and get a $1,000 check cashed, they would go to the ATM and take out a $500 maximum withdrawal at the ATM. So she's going through $1,500 a day with him. They saw this 2 days before it got reported to me. What do you think the first thing I did as a security officer of that bank? I reached out to my client and asked him who that was in the car. What do you think he told me? Told me it wasn't none of my damn business is what he told me. All right. That's exactly what he told me. So I had to explain to him, yes, sir, this is why it is my business. All right. Then he goes on to explain to me that this is his daughter, not stepdaughter, actually granddaughter, that is battling cancer, and that he's trying to help her through some cancer treatments. And how you argue with that? You're like, yes, sir, yes, sir. All right. So I immediately called Jones County Sheriff's Department through some contacts I had over there. This was actually a branch in Bibb County, but they were coming. He's actually a Jones County client. And it took 2 or 3 days to get one of the investigators to break loose to be able to follow up on this. And at the same time, they're coming back every day. So I got teller staff calling me, Pete, what are you doing? I mean, what are we doing? We're still allowing this to happen. So I finally called a contact that I had and said, listen, I'm just fixing to shut the account down because I'm not going to watch it bleed like this. And he says, no, we're on it right now. We're watching it. So the next morning, they were on the house. We knew exactly what time they were going to the branch. They were going the same time. They watched her come out, get in the car, slide down where nobody in the neighborhood could see her. They pull up to the branch, did their $1,000 check. They went to the ATM. They watched them go to a church downtown Macon. They watched her get out and disappear behind the church. She comes back. As they come back into Jones County, they do a traffic stop, and she had quite a bit of oxycodone on her. So she was arrested for all the drugs. Come to find out, she actually knew through a family member of this gentleman, actually it was her boyfriend. She had never met him before. They knew that he was having some pretty severe dementia issues. She went to his house, introduced herself as his granddaughter, and he took her in. And she was fixing to clean his account out. And she would have. She just took everything he had.
Hi, I'm Brandy, and I would like to invite you to experience our newly renovated mammography suite at the Fairview Park Hospital Breast Center. Our breast center has its own dedicated entrance with a relaxing boutique-like waiting area. You can make your appointment online anytime at fairviewparkhospital.com or by calling 478-274-3919. Most appointments take 30 minutes or less, and we will have your results back to your doctor within 24 hours.
Georgia Pools is now your authorized RecTech dealer. Summer's here and the temperature's rising, so make a big splash with friends and family now with a pool from Georgia Pools. Or relax in a luxurious hot tub or sauna. No down payments and easy financing. Don't wait a year for your pool. Georgia Pools has the manpower to get the job done. Georgia Pools has a large selection of pool chemicals and accessories. Come see our selection of Yeti coolers, tumblers, cups, and more. Call Georgia Pools today at 478-275-3607 or come by and see us at 1201 Hillcrest Parkway in Dublin. Georgia Pools, your authorized RecTech dealer.
When you start looking at elder abuse, there's probably nothing more than I'm so compassionate about, because you're taking care of individuals that a lot of times they've worked their whole life They've worked their whole life to be able to retire. And to see somebody or some fraudster take that from them, we did so much. We're doing so much with Morris Bank. We're doing so much work with Division of Agent Services. We actually have adult risk certifications, just employees, frontline staff that recognize those red flags. And that's a 3-day course through the state of Georgia. It's one of the toughest courses you ever go through because you see all these deaths, you see all this fraud. But banks are a first responder when it comes to that mandated reporter. We are a mandated reporter. If we see mere suspect that somebody's being taken advantage of and they're 65 or older, we're mandated to report that not only to Division of Agent Services but to law enforcement. And actually, if we don't do that, we could be found guilty of a misdemeanor crime. I haven't seen that happen, but I've seen some DAs threaten it on some larger banks that wasn't doing their reporting. But by law, we're mandated to report that. But this is from one of the attorneys that shared this with me.
Can you tell us how you've been affected by what happened to you?
Well, of course, it was a terrible shock to me because I trusted her, and it was really a disaster to me because then I started worrying about how I'm going to make my living or.
Sorry, what happened to that? Isn't it cut off? Sorry about that.
How you've been affected by what happened to you?
Well, of course, it was a terrible shock to me because I trusted her, and it was really a disaster to me because then I started worrying about how I'm going to make my living or what will happen to me. So I didn't really want to think much about it.
So this was a caregiver that actually just took everything that man had. Somebody that was an in-home caregiver that was out of Metro Atlanta. You see how impactful that is. We see these fraudsters that when they wind up having a victim like that, they're celebrating, that they've been able to steal that kind of money. He lost his house and everything. And that was a deposition from the U.S. Attorney, or one of the attorney's offices up there, just in case he didn't live long enough to see the prosecution go through, is what that was being filmed for. They used as evidence against her. All right. I say I'm going to take this out every time, and then I have somebody walk in the branch because they've won the lottery. All right. Every time I'm thinking we're past that, we're not. It just comes back around. This is a Jamaican lottery. Why people think they've won the Jamaican lottery when you've never played the Jamaican lottery, it just doesn't make sense. But this is how this works. You've got a Jamaican fraudster. You've got a PC laptop. All it takes is a Magic Jack. That's voice over IP subscriber. They actually subscribe to that in the U.S. It can be from Atlanta, Georgia. They're actually in Jamaica calling you with a call that's showing up on a prefix or on your phone as Atlanta, Georgia, or somewhere in the States. And they try to tell you and convince you that you've won the lottery, and they're going to ask you to pay taxes and fees. These are lead sheets from Jamaica. They're sold on the dark web from $30 to $50. So if they have a victim out there that's fallen victim to this, guess what? They're probably going to fall victim again. they sell that information to your other fraudsters on the dark web. That's exactly what you're seeing here as the cheat sheets. Usually the victims are 65 and over. Like I said, they make it look very real. They come in with these FedEx packages. I know y'all have seen this. I know if you've been in the banking, you've seen it. They come in with $20 shipping on a FedEx package or Express, UPS, and these are all stolen funds. All right. Party, big houses, cars in Jamaica. If you look at this as far as a neighborhood, this is what it was before the Jamaican lottery. Very poor, impoverished. Look at all the mansions now. All that's from stolen money from U.S. citizens that built that. You think the government's going to do anything about that? They eventually reached out and started this because of all the control, all the murders in Jamaica trying to control the fraudsters and the funds coming in from the U.S. But a huge problem. All right, mail theft. Well, we're running short. If you haven't heard of this, I mean, our mail system's in dire straits. I know Spence has seen it. We've seen it as a bank. I think in 1 week out of Bibb County, we had over $200,000 worth of commercial checks stolen. None of them were cashed. We've certainly identified them, but it puts a lot of strain on the bank as far as manpower just dealing with all of those to make sure they're not. Unfortunately, your gangs out there have learned that if we can steal these checks, we can wash them, we can sell them. There's a number of things we can do with them. They sell them on the dark web. And the biggest thing is the error keys. That's a generic error key that opens all of your blue bins. So all of these fraudsters pretty much have them. They sell them on the dark web, and you've had a number of postal carriers robbed. You've actually had 2 killed over those arrow keys. So they steal every bit of that mail. So just make sure you're not going to a blue mailbox. I wouldn't put anything in one. I would take it inside to the post office. Because even if it's a letter going to somebody, I want them to receive it. They're just stealing the mail in bulk and going through it. All right. That's what the arrow key looks like. This is just some more information. We brought a postal inspector to one of the GBA conferences. And this is just really concerning with this. In 2022, 412 letter carriers were robbed while on duty. 2023, 843 letter carriers were robbed on duty. Mail thefts of high volume, including from blue collection boxes, rose from 38,500 incidents in 2022 to more than 55,000 in 23. I mean, think that's a problem? It's a huge problem for us. So, and on top of that, you know, we got postal employees that are actually stealing the checks themselves. We've seen a number of those prosecuted. This one right here was $1.7 million worth of checks that this employee stole from the Postal Service. Uses of checks are down. Americans wrote roughly 3.4 billion in checks in 22, 19 billion in 1990. But the difference is in 1990, checks were ranged around 673. Now they're at 2,652. So the checks are fewer number of checks written, but the amounts are much higher, which is making it more lucrative for the fraudsters. This is what the Postal Service is attempting to do. This was in 2022, the Postal Reform Act. They're supposed to add more secure collection boxes with digital locks, and they're also trying to create legislation to make it much more, just giving much more sentence guidelines, harsher sentence guidelines for somebody that tampers with the mail or certainly robs one of the mail carriers or steals checks. Just some tips right there. I'm not going to go through every one of those, but don't let mail sit in your mailbox. Retrieve it daily. Just be careful about dropping anything in a blue collection box. You can sign up for informed delivery. The Postal Service will send you a preview of what mail and packages are coming. If you're out of town, sign up to have your mail held at the post office. Just a number of things there. And they're also warning everybody just to please watch out for your mail carriers. If you just happen to see, just pay a little more attention to see if you see anybody following them, if they're coming by your house, is somebody following that mail carrier? And if there's any type of suspicion there that mail carrier is in danger or somebody's actually casing them like they would a bank, call law enforcement, let them know that, and see if they can intercept to make sure that carrier is okay. Last thing I want to talk about briefly, I got about 5 minutes. I think this is just so important. It's just banks would never ask that. It's a campaign by the ABA, American Bankers Association. They put out some great information out there. Please, if you get a chance, go out there. Just go to ABA, or you can go Banks Never Ask That. They actually have some great material out there. They actually have some quizzes that you can take to show you real life text coming in. Is this legitimate coming from a bank compared to what's fraud? So it's a great learning tool because we have been just inundated with that information. This is what it's looking like. You know, banks never ask that. They will never ask you to open a link. Never ask you to open a link. They will not use fear-inducing language that your account's immediately fixing to be cut off. If they send an attachment, I know Larry's in here, do not open or do not click on an attachment. All right. They request personal info. They will never request personal info like your PIN numbers, passwords, social security numbers, and they'll try to pressure you to log into or send money with payment apps. Those are huge red flags. Same here, banks will never provide you with a log to log in via email. Never click links that you were not expecting. All right, just not going to happen. Banks will never provide you with a link to log in via email. Never click links that you weren't expecting. All right, so it's something that you did not initiate. Banks rarely, if ever, send links via text, nor will they use scare tactics. Also look for misspelled words. When in doubt, verify the message. Call your bank. That's the reason it's so important to have that personal banker, that CSR that you know. We're a community bank. Before you click on something, or if you get any type of email, reach out to the bank, talk to somebody that you know. All right? Because the bank's going to never ask you for that password. They do not have to have that information. Even if they detect fraud, they do not have to have that information. They're seeing it in front of them. They would never ask you for that. And like I said, they will not ask for a PIN or address during a phone call. Never share confidential details unless your called number on the back of your bank card. I think the biggest thing there is I actually had a credit card. This has been years ago. Don't mind telling you, it was a Chase card. I'm sitting there one morning, I get a call, said it was Chase card. It was somebody from Chase wanting to know if I had used my card in another state. I wouldn't talk to them. I mean, I did have that, and this is when I was still with the GBI. I was like, no, sir, I'm not going to talk to you about that. And he says, I understand that, and I appreciate that. And he said, but Mr. Stewart, what I'd like for you to do is get your Chase card out, call the number on the back of that card. That's going to go to our fraud department. Tell them that you received a call, and this is my name. And said, you're not going to talk to me. You're going to talk to somebody else. I said, but they're going to see the same thing I'm seeing in real time right now, and we're trying to prevent these charges on this card. I did that, and they told me the same thing. Yeah, we're seeing somebody using it at a Walmart in like 5 states over. And all I said was, no, that is not me. Didn't provide them any other information. They immediately shut that card down, and the next day they had overnighted me a card. And that's been years ago. Right. So any questions, call that number on the back of your card. Better yet, call a contact that you have with a financial institution. With that, I'm going to go ahead, and I think we're out of time. I'm going to put my information up there also. Please, if there's anything we can do for you, there's a lot of resources sitting in this room right now. There's a lot of people with our deposit operations. If you've got any questions, you can come to me. If I can't answer, we certainly get you to somebody that deals with that on a daily basis. Spence, I appreciate you putting this together, and thank you all so much for attending.